We are live now. Well, good morning to everybody watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and listening to us in Clubhouse. So it is a very, very big pleasure to have you with us on this rainy and cold Wednesday morning here in Japan.
Yeah.
Very cold, yes. So it snowed last night, but the snow seems to have melted mostly here in Tokyo. How is it in Atami, team?
Yeah, I always, whenever it snows, it's so rare it snows here. That's like hell freezing over when it
Oh,
snows.
mm,
So,
yeah.
but it melted when it hit the ground, but it's still weird to see it here, right?
Right, yes. Well, we all know that Atami is the Riviera of Japan, or at least they call it that way. So it's difficult to imagine that it snows there and any snow stays for a long time.
It's usually, on average, a couple degrees warmer in Atami. We're right on the ocean compared to Tokyo and Yokohama.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
But it was a chilly day yesterday, and as anyway, let's get to our sponsor. I know we got to think about sponsor stuff.
Yes, yes, very much. So before that, yes, I just wanted to say that today we're going to talk about the word and the concept that has become very popular recently. And yes, us being, the chief curmudgeon and the chief enthusiast, we decided to have this podcast about the word and concept of Ikigai and the different cultural aspects of it. But before that, I really want to say thank you to our sponsor, and that is Kanachu, or as it is known, Kanachu, or Kanagawa Chuo Jutaku. It is a company that is based in Yokohama, and we're very, very happy to have it here to have the pleasure of promoting Kanachu on our podcast because James, who represents Kanachu, is a friend of ours and also a person we have worked with before. And it's indeed our pleasure to work with them. So if you have any projects in the fields of buying and selling real estate investment, or property management in the area of Yokohama, do not hesitate and reach out to james@kanacho.com. Yes. So, Tim, we are going back now to the framing of our conversation today.
Yes, and just to give a little framing and context. So I think it was last week I posted about this ad ran across my feed. It was actually on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I think we have that ad. I don't know if you could throw it
Yes,
up.
I will. Yes, I will bring it
I
up on.
I cringed when I saw it. Maybe the people who are viewing this might cringe as well, but
Mhm.
it was just it was almost comical to me. I found it kind of funny, but also sad because some people are going to fall for it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's about Ikigai, and I guess we're commercializing it now, right?
We.
And I've been fascinated with this, the romanticization of everything Japanese because I think it invites clicks, right? I'm
Mhm.
talking everything now. It seems there's so much of that romanticizing and mystifying Japan. And in reality, my job is demystifying Japan. So I'm always going in the opposite direction, right? And
Yes.
so now they want to make Ikigai the sacred art of Ikigai coaching. And I call this the certification racket. As soon as something starts getting popular, the certification racket is right in behind it to capitalize on it by creating these courses and then having a certificate at the end and saying you're certified, right? And obviously, I don't think it's anybody would say it's regulated. It's just this. I don't know. It's like merit badges, and I want to state up front. I am all for certifications in certain fields. We
Mhm.
absolutely them pilots, doctors, architects, same with, when I ran a factory, OSHA, you had to like certify, and I welcome that. It kept me on my toes. It was guardrails that made me think of stuff I would have never thought of. So it's like it's needed in many sectors, just for safety reasons, if for no other reason, right?
Mhm.
So I acknowledge the necessity, but there's a lot of things that have come and gone since
Mhm.
I was in the workforce since the 1980s. Management fads, right?
Right.
Something becomes
Mm-hmm.
hot, and then again, the certification is right. To me, this is almost a laughable, almost a joke, because who'd have thunk that Ikigai now, you're going to be the sacred art of Ikigai? So they've already romanticized it, and they're
Right. Yeah.
online. And I read the remarks, and I think it was mostly bots. Oh, I can't wait to take this. It looked like
Okay. Yeah.
didn't look like real people, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are some people that'll fall for it, right?
Yeah.
So Maya and I have had these discussions about Ikigai, and
Mm-hmm.
among other things.
Yeah.
And here's kind of the framing I came from, the way I look at the world. I think there's society has a tendency, and the media is really bad, of taking complicated topics and oversimplifying them.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of conflict imaginable, that the media wants to have a white hat and a black hat and have this very, clear cut black and white narrative, the good guys, bad guys, and you root for one side, right? Right? Don't you agree with that?
Yes. No, I agree with you. Very much so. Yes. Everything becomes from deeply nuanced and complex. It becomes to just a binary concept, or
Because you
sometimes.
can't clicks. You can't
Yeah.
get click nuance. It just doesn't work online,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We're left with these, these binary
Yeah.
decisions.
Decisions.
But anyway, getting back to to Ikigai, it's like they've done the opposite, and this is the opposite of taking the complicated and oversimplifying it. We also take the simple stuff and we overcomplicate it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's Ikigai. I think
Mm-hmm.
Ikigai is not this exotic concept. I don't think the Japanese don't have a monopoly on the concept. You go to any culture around the world, and the idea of having a meaningful life, having a
Right.
reason to have a reason to wake up in the morning and go to work, doing something with passion that is fulfilling. I think that's a universal
Yeah.
human thing, right? And
Yeah.
that's what um
Yeah.
and Maya and I, we were talking about this, right? Before
We were.
Ikigai became this fad, I mostly heard Ikigai in this context. I have a 93-year-old mother-in-law. So since she was in her 80s, she was she's a very established haiku poet and instructor, and she's published, and she was writing haiku. And then she
Mm-hmm.
stopped. And my wife was concerned. She didn't want her mother to lose her Ikigai, her reason for living. And that was one of her mother's passions. And then her mother just lost interest in it. And so, in my wife's view, that was maybe a red flag that, I want her to have a meaningful life, right? So,
Right.
I think that's a very understandable context. But
Mm-hmm.
Westerners have taken it now and we've overcomplicated it. And we've got these fancy schmancy Venn diagrams, and they somehow found a way to relate it to your job. It's a much more encompassing thing. It's not really professional. It could be part of your profession if you're doing something meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more like just having a purpose in life, right?
Yes.
And they overcomplicated it
Mm.
and romanticized it. And this idea that, we must search for meaning in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Here's another point I made to Maya. I said, search, I think, is the wrong verb. I think the verb is you have to create meaning, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
and people talk about having a dream job.
Mm-hmm.
I found my dream job when I was 43 years old after 20 years of doing a lot of jobs that were not my dream job,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
right? And you could say, well, I wasn't doing something meaningful. And I would say, no, because every job I infused it with meaning by approaching it by saying, what can I get out of this? Like for me, like how can I grow? What
Mm-hmm.
can I learn from this, right?
All right.
And so even if I didn't like the job,
Mm-hmm.
I learned. I learned something, and
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
put it in my toolbox, and then I waited for the next. I didn't even wait. I always was open for the next opportunity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I approached it. So I added value to myself, even though it wasn't my dream job.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't do your dream job. The market won't allow it for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I,
Yeah.
I think you got to be practical and say, okay, I'm going to do a job that I don't hate, and then I'll do the dream thing on the side as a hobby. Like
Right.
sometimes you have to shift your priorities because you got to
Mm-hmm.
put, on the table, right, and pay the bills.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I still believe that we all have the power to create value and
Mm.
to create meaning.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for it, you probably won't find it because you're looking in the wrong direction. It's here and it's here, right?
It
Caring
is.
and
Yes.
being fulfilled.
Mm.
So those were kind of my. So I think that it's the idea of Ikigai is taking something very simple and overcomplicating it, and then so you can create a course to sell to people and certify them. That's what
Right.
it's.
Yeah.
Your thoughts,
Oh,
Maya?
yes, my thoughts. I want to start with the broader context. So I think that, well, when we talk about, or when a concept is taken out of context or out of, something, there is a reason for that. And I believe that when the society or people in different societies feel that there is a lot of uncertainty in their lives, and when there are so many things that they cannot control, that are out of their control, they tend to look for something. And sometimes, or most of the time, they basically find something that does not usually exist in their philosophical, if I say philosophical, it's too academic probably, but in their everyday lives. Yes,
Yeah,
or a concept that they haven't been aware
yeah,
as a single concept until that period of time or until that time. And I believe that with everything that happened during the past couple of years, with the pandemic and also with the uncertainty, with military conflicts throughout the world, people just are trying to make sense. And when they're trying to make sense, they really look for something that is, something new that will help them make sense. Throughout
yeah,
the millennia, throughout the centuries, I believe that this has been, the pagan beliefs, about nature and rights, and later it became religion. And nowadays, of course, religion still persists as one of the ways in which people make sense. But also, we're looking for something more that will help us also find our own meaning. Of course, and now, looking to the east, we can find, you know, concepts like Ikigai. We can find concepts that we can apply to our own lives. But as Tim, as you say, we cannot actually apply them the way they are. Or they exist in their own cultures, right? In their original cultures. We either oversimplify them or overcomplicate them because we overlay our own values and our
yeah.
own understanding
For
and our
sure.
own beliefs. And it happens inevitably because our human brains have limitations. I want to say this. I'm so sorry to say this, but unfortunately,
No,
we are just humans, right? And yes, we think in certain ways, and we look for the same things in life. And I also want to say that, as Tim, to the point that this is not a universal concept. This is a universal concept, right? Looking for meaning in life. It's not something that exists only here in Japan. So we have in Europe, we have people looking for who have been looking for meaning, right? We have the existentialism, but before that, we also have characters like Hamlet. Imagine,
yeah,
saying to be or not to be in that particular tough situation he was put in after his father was killed, and he was called by the spirit of his father to avenge the spirit and everything. It's just we always look for something, and we wonder why are we here, because I hate to say this, and I apologize to everybody listening to us, we're not that strong. right, as individuals, even though, but we want to believe that we are, especially we in the West, once again, we're coming to the different cultural systems and mindset. Especially in the West, we believe that we're the agents of our own destiny, right?
Yes. As individuals, individual.
As individuals, and in some cases that's true. I'm not saying that it is not true, but in some cases it's true. But we also need to recognize the fact that we exist as part of a community, a group, and so on. And for the Japanese people, when they talk about ikigai, their ikigai is very much connected to them being a member of a community or a member of a family as well. So it's really different from what we think Ikigai is in the West and how it is perceived here. Because I have talked with my Japanese family, with my Japanese friends. First, I want to say that for them, when I asked them, what is Ikigai? They had a lot of difficulty telling me what it was. They cannot define it as a concept, right? Just the way we like to define things in the West. And I believe that it's just part of their mindset. They have been born with it. They have watched their friends, their family to to do it or not to do it. But always, especially when I talk with my mother-in-law, part of her explanation is being able to contribute. Okay, that's part of her ikigai, and I believe it's not only her. So the point I'm trying to make is that for many Japanese people, ikigai also includes contribution to their immediate in-group or their immediate community or to the society at large. And this is not something they do, how can I say, it's kind of subconscious for them,
Yeah. It's
right?
baked. It's baked
It's
into the cake. Yeah.
Yeah, it is baked into their way of thinking, so it
That's
comes
what
naturally.
culture is. Culture is your unconscious bias.
Yes, yes,
Most of the,
yes. And
what you.
another point, yes, to what you said, Tim, is that when you went through jobs which you didn't initially enjoy, you still made sense of them by learning. I
Yeah.
believe that we all go through that. And sometimes it's very tough to go through periods of time when you're looking for meaning and you don't appreciate, or you don't, not appreciate, but you don't enjoy what comes your way. But we still learn. And one thing that I believe is also a big part of the Japanese Ikigai, I may be mistaken, but I believe it is basically this sense of learning and the knowledge, once again, the subconscious knowledge that everything comes with a purpose. And, eventually, when you go through that period of time, tough period of time, dots will connect backwards, and the knowledge and the experience you have had before will be productive and will come together and help you find what you really think gives you meaning. So right, and then another thing which I want to say is that a lot of times when I have seen those Venn diagrams
Yeah.
promoting ikigai courses and this and that,
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the circles in the Venn diagram is making money out of what you love. So
Yeah.
I have a big chip on my shoulder when it comes to money and ikigai, connecting these two things.
Right.
Yes, because
I
it's,
do too. It's already being commercialized.
yes, yes.
It be a part of your, like,
Mhm.
if you find your work meaningful and you're doing good and you get, yes, it could be, it could fit.
Yes, it
But
could
but
fit. But this is not originally part of, I mean,
right.
money is not originally part of the ikigai. So, and that's why for example, when it comes, I will give you an example with my with my mother-in-law. Sorry. So, one of the ikigai, how can I put it? The way she expressed her sense of meaning, or she wanted to feel that sense of meaning, was when a relative passed away. And that relative, so it was her uncle. And that uncle and aunt, basically the aunt passed away a couple of years after the uncle. So they were relatively well off, but they didn't have people to inherit that. They didn't have immediate children, right? So
Right.
what happened was that in the family tree, so probably if you have lived in Japan, you probably know that most of the families have their family trees here. They keep records and so on. My mother-in-law does the same. And according to that family tree and the family register, so she was the next in line to inherit that. What's that?
Yeah. Get the inheritance. Yeah.
Yes, to get the inheritance. What my mother-in-law did, even though she didn't have to, nobody expected her to do that, she split that inheritance between 11 different families. Even though none of those families expected her to do that, she split it in, that's equal parts.
And sadly, that's not always what happens. But
No,
so
that's
she,
not always that happens.
that's integrity. And I think
Yes,
our is the same way. But
yes.
yes, very admirable.
And that gave her meaning. And when she was talking about, those families coming to her and saying, thank you, we didn't expect you to do that, but we're very grateful. And she was incredibly happy. And she told me, I really am happy that I could help them, because some of those families, they moved house, they decided to do this and that with that inheritance, and it was fascinating because she made them feel good, and that was her meaning, right?
Yes.
So it's wonderful to know that. And when you see it, Tim, it's not the case all the time. I agree
Right.
with you.
Right.
But
And sadly, it's
mhm,
not
right. But there are, it's not about keeping the money for yourself.
right.
I'm trying to say
Exactly.
my point that it's not about money. It's about contributing to your inner group, to your community, to your family, to the society. And once again, if I can, jump here from private or from individuals, we can also see that in business. I want to say, when these companies, those corporations, Japanese corporations that have been here for hundreds of years, when the people who lead them talk about business, they talk about contributing to society again. So this is, contribution is a very big part of Ikigai for individuals, but also for companies, the corporations here. And at the same time, it's not a short-term concept. This is
It's
another
that
thing.
very
It's
practical,
Yes, it's very practical, and it's always long-term.
always long term, but sustainable.
Sustainable, yes.
An
Yeah.
eye on the future to maintain, right? Versus let's get what we can right now. And
Hmm.
that changes how you make decisions. I've seen it, right? Taking
Yes.
the long view, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I love talking to Maya because you always it's always very stimulating. You make me think of new stuff. And we talked about this offline, but you made a really really good point, and that is that getting back to Ikigai,
Hmm.
the Ikigai is not a Ikigai. It's
Hmm.
sometimes it's a target. It's a shifting. It shifts with age and prior, at least with me, right? So what
Yeah.
was my back then, learning so I can be a professional and make money and support my family, shifted to now at this age, it's spending quality time with people I love and you know uh, having friendships that elevate me as a person, that make me a better person, and that bring me gratitude, and giving into that and getting back is part of the to me, that's spending quality time. And again, as I get older, I just turned 67. I'm more aware of, oh, time is shrinking. I mean, it's true with all of us, right? My remaining time
Yes.
on earth is
Mhm.
with every second that
Right.
passes. And therefore, there's a greater sense of urgency not to waste my time on things and issues and out of my control and not on people I don't want to deal with. And that's the curmudgeon side of me. I try to be nice and I hide my curmudgeon side in this public sphere because I don't want to tarnish Maya's great reputation. But, you know, I am a curmudgeon in that I'm very picky about who I let into my inner circle, and it's just priority, spending time. So that's
Mhm.
my guy now, as opposed to, and experiences in life make you
Yes.
reflect, right? I went through some, let's just, without going into detail, existential times in my life, and I basically stared into the abyss, and I realized, oh my God, I have a great life, and it's because I have a great wife and great friends, and so
Yeah.
I want to. That's what I value in life now, right?
Yes.
That's my
Mm-hmm.
ikigai, and
Yes.
I play guitar, sing, even though I suck at it. I like to do it, so that's what I'm doing, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it shifts, because your priorities change, and it's part of your self growth, right? Discovering who you
Yes.
are.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
agree on that. And I think
that
that it is
that was
a
your idea.
cyclical, yes,
I mean,
it
you're the
is.
one who said it.
Yeah, of course, yes, but it's a cyclical process, I believe, because as you said, as we go through life, we go through different stages in life. And my priorities when I was in university and my priorities now, right, are so very different. What I wanted to do then, I think that I basically went through what I wanted to do then, but on the way I discovered that there are so many other things that I thought would give me meaning. And so I always strive to get to those or through those points of life or stages so that I can have that satisfaction and everything. But I also think that it's so very true that it's on us to create the meaning. So,
Yeah,
and we
I
can,
don't don't
yes,
search, create.
yeah, create. And we cannot also, I think that in many cases, actually, a lot of people wait for others to give them meaning. And it's
Yeah,
not, I think that the direction should be different. We should look around us and try to see what is necessary and find that meaning, create the meaning that will help us help others, I believe. So, but
yeah, yeah. You're touching on a topic we came up with. There's a lot of word. A lot of people use the word validate now, right? You got to
oh
validate,
right, yes, yes, yes.
and it's kind of related to that because when I was a kid, nobody used that word validate, but it was, oh, did they validate your license? It wasn't about, and I'm not saying I'm against validating people. I think it's very kind to do, to, acknowledge their feelings and say, yes, I understand. But I also think, I guess I was raised without using the word, don't seek other people's validation.
Mm-hmm.
Validate yourself, be self-validate, because if you're worried about other people, is that really a way to live your life? And again, we all like to be validated, all of us, we're humans, right? It's part of
We
us,
are,
but
yes.
I still believe cultivating that, not defining your own self-worth based on whether somebody else validated you. People should be working on that. We all need to work on it,
We
right?
do.
Rather than
Yeah,
everybody to validate us, right?
yeah. I believe that it's, well, depending on the individual, the level of difficulty of self-validation is different. And of course, it is because there are so many factors about this. But let me say thank you to House first, and we can
Yes,
continue
I'm
talking about
our,
this.
our
Yes,
halftime break with
yes, right.
thanks.
Yeah. So I wanted to also give a plug to our other sponsor and our friends, House. They are also known as House Inc. You can find them online, you can find the contact details on YouTube as well, the description of this video. And House does custom home design, they do construction, they also do commercial building construction. And if you ever want to go through or have a project in these fields, please do not hesitate to contact them. You can talk with Hana Urushizawa Howell there. She is also available on LinkedIn. One big advantage of House as well as Kanacho is that you can talk with them either in Japanese or in English. We know that it's sometimes difficult to talk with real estate agents and construction companies in English, but you're not going to have this challenge with House and Kanacho. So if you have any projects in mind, reach out and talk with Hannah and James, and they will do their best to customize their services to you. And now again, so let's move back to the self-validation, I believe, because I think that it's a big part of, the way, or how can I put it, the path to Ikigai as well. Because we all struggle with, yes, we all struggle with issues for different reasons. They could come from our childhood or later from our teenage years, our upbringing or the environment which we grew up in. So there's so many different reasons for individuals to, to have issues and have difficulty to trust their own judgment, to believe in themselves. And I think that we all eventually, through our lives, we try to self-validate ourselves. And sometimes in order to do that, we go through a period of time when we need other people's validation as well, which is understandable, but it's kind of difficult as well, right? Because it makes us dependable, psychologically dependable on others.
Stuff you can't control, like you can't.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
control that, You know,
Yeah.
I guess it kind of begs the question, like if you're worried about how people look at you and whether you're assigning your self-worth
Mm-hmm.
based on what other people think of you, is it really possible to find your ikigai? Like is
Yeah.
impediment to really finding some kind of purpose, or again, not finding, creating that purpose, right? I think it's misspent energy, but we all do it. I'm not saying I'm above it, but
Mm-hmm.
still can, I think, self-develop to weaken that tendency and to be more focused on, I don't know, self-validation, self-improvement, competing with self, not others. Just being better than yesterday. That's an ikigai right there, right?
Right there. Yes.
Yesterday.
Yeah. I really like that. And I was thinking, Timon, while listening to you, because we are once again getting into the different cultural aspects of this,
Yeah.
because you and I, we are just two foreigners talking about the Japanese Ikigai. And once again, when we talk about culture, we probably need to say once again, this is from what we have seen throughout our experience here in Japan and throughout our experience with our Japanese families and Japanese friends. So, and of course, some people may disagree with us, and that's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine because once again, we experience Japan and we experience other countries in different ways because we come from different backgrounds. But at the same time, it is important to also, I think, to see how self-validation and well, it is actually different in the Western and the Japanese cultures. Because in Japan, when people introduce themselves, they start by introducing themselves in relation to their work or family. And it also
True.
gives you some, food for thought. Are the Japanese people, or are Japanese people trying to self-validate, or are they trying to be validated by their in-group? I don't
Both.
know that. Or
I,
both, probably both, right?
not
So
all
this,
Japanese they're the same though. That's
They
what,
are not.
and
Exactly, yes, probably
that's
both.
the thing. And that's the thing, because so many people believe Japan is this homogenous culture. And I feel like their tatemae is pretty
Yes, right, yes.
design. That's how it's supposed to be. But I think their hone is very
Hmm.
diverse. And you got to
Very
get to know
diverse.
people, and you got to get to know their hone to realize, oh my God, they're not all the same, right?
Yeah,
So we're all in our bubbles in Japan because we're dealing with different Japanese people. The folks you're in contact with are not the same as that I am, right? And so no one's right or wrong. We're experiencing Japan from different points of view, as you pointed out, right? But
yes.
and I think artists and musicians probably are more tuned into the Ikigai thing.
Hmm.
Um, they live
Yes,
music, a lot of them, or their art or whatever it is, right? So
yes.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also once again it's talking about maybe the artistic nature of, or the stronger artistic nature of some people is very helpful in that sense. And also I wanted to say that from my observations here, it looks like you know the what's that, the achievement of that ikigai, first of all, it's cyclic. Of course, it moves and it changes, it shifts with age and experience, but also it doesn't really come at a very young age. So I believe that you need a certain amount of experience before you can figure out what your ikigai is.
And self-awareness, which you cultivate hopefully throughout your life.
Yes, you cultivate it, and you cultivate it through, well, all those experiences and reflecting on them as well, right? So it's really an interesting topic, but once again, it's not, how can I say, it's so very difficult. I haven't seen any Japanese person being able to describe it in one sentence or two sentences. And certainly it's not something that my relatives and friends who have talked about it can put in a diagram.
I don't think they think about it much,
No.
you know. And I guess it's possible to have a ikigai without really consciously thinking of it, just enjoying
Hmm.
living way.
Right. Yeah.
And as Saskia pointed out, like everything in Japan, context, context is everything. Or to quote my
Yes.
friend for 25 years, he's an American, he goes, everything you can say about Japan, you can also say the opposite. And that's
Right.
another
Yes.
context. The opposite thing
Yeah.
might be the do, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
oh, yep, it is.
Yeah.
And wonder, again, just thinking about it, brainstorming, like belonging is very important to all of us, but I think maybe
All of us. Mm.
there's degrees of it, maybe, and maybe in Japan it's a little more important because, as you mentioned earlier, your identity is tied to your group. You're a jibun, literally means fraction. I'm a fraction of the whole. The word for
Yes.
self, jibun, right? Um, so there's that, that what the group orientation where your identity and feeling like you're a valued member of the group through your contributions to the group is in itself maybe rewarding for many people. I'm not sure if that's a
Yeah.
reason to live, but it certainly makes your life better, more pleasant.
Right. Yes.
Um,
Yeah. More pleasant. I believe that is true too. And I think that, yes, once again, the level of what is that? Not acceptance, but tolerance, or how can I put, the ability, our ability to be individuals without identifying with a group in the West is higher. So but that's because once again we have been raised in that way.
yeah,
To believe that individuals, we are the agents, the soul agents and drivers and engines of our souls, of our destinies.
yeah.
And
Belonging isn't as valuable
mhm,
in and just a
the
quick example.
priority is not that high. as it
It's
is
not
in
that
Japan.
high.
Yes.
Here's a really good example. So years ago, I was telling my wife, and I've told this story before. I said, "Yeah, when I was a naughty boy, my parents would ground me." And she goes, "What does ground mean?" You know, we're speaking Japanese, but I said ground though, and she goes, "What's that?"
Ground.
I go, "Oh, they wouldn't let me go outside. They keep me in the
Mm.
house." And she thought that was fascinating because she said, when I was a naughty girl, my mom pushed me outside and locked the door, and I was pounding to get back in the house. And what's happening here is
Mm.
we're denying the child something they value. In my case, it was freedom and independence. And in her case, it was belonging, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, right there, you're seeing a different value system
Mm-hmm.
of, and your behavior is simply denying whatever that kid values, right?
Yeah.
In this case, it was the opposite. But I was always like, I wish I had your mom. She locked me out. See you later, mom. I'm going off with my friends, right?
Yeah.
So even then, in our childhood, we see this like slightly different focus on what's
Mm-hmm.
valuable.
Right. We do. Yes. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think that, oh, yes, Kei-san, thank you very much for the comment that, yeah,
Yeah,
well, looking for meaning is a universal concept. And, well, yes, Japanese graphic description of the circles was very well organized. I believe it was very well organized. And that's once again a good example of how we impose our Western tools, on concepts that are in the beginning, they're alien to us.
Aristotelian analyze everything, break it into parts, and
Yes, that's how we do that in the things in the West. We analyze everything, we break it into single blocks, and
yeah,
then yes,
that's how we think. We're
yes,
logical, Western logic.
yes. The logic, yes, the logic is very important. Yes, for us, everything should be logical. But once again, if you allow me to just meander a little bit here, we love logic in the West, and we very seldom actually talk about emotions there. And I believe that one of our struggles comes because of that, because we believe that everything is logical, and put very little what's that focus on the fact that humans are emotional beings
For
before we are logical.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I it's not an original idea. I read it years ago, but I can't remember who said it. But he
Mm-hmm.
was talking about how the Japanese, when they plan,
Mm-hmm.
they leave a lot of room for negotiation, and
All
that
right.
and when they're planning, they're using logic, but they also understand that just as important in logic, and this is again not my term, but it's a beautiful term. They think of implementational feasibility. In other
Right.
words, like
Yes.
if you don't take the
Mm.
emotion, people, they're not going to be behind it, and it's going to be more difficult to implement. So instead of giving them the 100% efficient plan, you go with 80%,
Yeah.
but also got goodwill and people who bought into it. So it's more likely to get implemented the
Yeah.
right way if you give up
Right.
a little bit of that logic, which is a good way to frame it, I think. Right?
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I talked with a friend of mine a couple of years ago, and he said, in the Japanese kuyakusho, that is the word office, right? When you go there, you have to go there for different procedures for registration, like address registration and also family registration and everything. So there are different procedures there. And that friend of mine, he said, in Japan, in the Japanese kuyakusho, all the processes are designed so that they serve 80% of the population well, seamlessly.
Oh,
And then
interesting.
the rest 20% are left, out of the equation, but they are served case by case. And oftentimes it's difficult, right? For those 20% of the population, it's difficult. But they still find a way to serve even those 20%, even though it takes longer, it's more difficult for them. While in the West, it's more about, individual what's that individuals being served. So everything is, or not everything, but oftentimes processes there are designed to be more flexible, and we come with the idea in the West that, well, we cannot design a process that serves everybody. So it's more or less, or most of the time, it's case by case. And so I am not sure whether that is the case. I haven't been living in the West for 24 years now. So, but that friend of mine, he was here just for a couple of years, and that was his observation. So I
The old 80-20 rule that always seems
went,
to come
yes,
back
yes,
in
yeah,
its
yes,
logical head.
mm,
Interesting. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
Uh,
But when
yeah,
we come, yeah, when in the beginning when I came here, I expected them to be very flexible, and they weren't. Those processes, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
once again, I think that that's because they are designed to serve 80% of the people without any bumps on the road, right? So,
Yeah, but then when you're, I used to, when I would teach about Japanese customer service,
mhm. I
show
was
them,
going into that direction too, Tim,
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I would
Yeah.
show them, and this is not based on data, just a
Mhm.
theoretical
Yeah.
um, chart, right? Where I would do the, the distribution, right? And the bell curve, right? And I
Hmm.
would say Japanese customer service, the average is extremely high.
Right.
It's much higher.
Yeah.
But the weak point, and it's very tight. And the reason
Hmm.
it's tight is because it's so standardized, right? So if you
Yes.
standardize everything and you have a mold or a kata, that
Yes.
everyone can follow, then you're
Hmm.
going to have a pretty high level of
Yes.
average, right? However, when anything is outside that standard is
Hmm.
asked for, oh my God, the universe is a miss now. And now they got to go talk to everybody to figure out what to do with this crazy foreigner who has this request that doesn't
Hmm.
fit the mold, right? Whether it's having an extra cheese on your hamburger or having them
Yeah.
not bring in the phones in your B&B at 6 o'clock because you want to party longer. I mean, whatever it is.
No, I understand that, but yes, once again, this is the emphasis on the group orientation. And there is a social, there is an understanding. The understanding is on the side of the service provider, but it's also on the side of the service receiver, right?
Yeah,
On the side of the customer. The customer understands that this is a standardized process,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And while in the West, we do not understand that.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
understand
We
that,
don't accept it. We don't.
yes, yeah. So, and in this sense of the word, when the Japanese say "kamasa," お客様は神様です. So, it
Yeah.
means that for them, yes, the customer is king. And because he's king, you have to anticipate all their needs and set a process of services that satisfies those needs in advance. So
Of
you
80.
anticipate that. Right, 80%, yes, 80%, but it is you anticipate those needs and you create the process. That's why your お客様 is kami-sama, right?
Yeah.
And then in the West, when we say the customer is king, we expect to be served individually, and that our every single wish, or what's that expectation, will be met the way it is as an individual and as a unique expectation. And that's
Except when it sucks, it really sucks. And that's my point about the US bell curve. It's
mhm,
wide and flat. And so
mhm.
when it's good, it's really good. People will go out of their way
Yeah.
to really make you happy as an individual. But because there are fewer standards,
Mhm.
when it's bad, it's really bad, and they don't care about you. I mean,
Yes. Yeah, yes,
runs the whole
exactly.
gamut, right?
Mhm.
And then if you get spoiled by Japan, and then you go move to America, you get really cranky about customer service because you were used to, hey, he said he'd be here at 3:30 and he didn't show up. In Japan they
Yeah.
would have at 3:29.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yes, but Tim, it's really funny because we started with the Ikigai and we went to customer service. But if I can actually tie these two or tie them together. So, well, my husband had an uncle who passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 96. And so he was a very nice person, always smiling. And he was, I mean, probably the sweetheart of the whole family, because he married into the family. So he married the younger daughter of of the family, and everybody loved him because when he came for what's that, the yearly holidays, right, for Oshogatsu and everything, even when the food that was served, for example, the onigiri was not salty enough, or it wasn't, for example, the yokan was not sweet enough, he would
Yeah.
always just smile and say, "Oh, oishii ne." He would never ever create a
Yeah.
problem. And that person actually, he worked for the same company for all his life. He and he raised to the point that he became the CEO of one of the what's that, the not the branch offices but the sub companies of the bigger one, right, of the corporation. And just a couple of yes, just a couple of days before he passed away, he said, "いい人生を送った。ありがたいです." So
Yeah.
I lived a great life, and I'm so grateful for it. And it also became a good saying in the family, like Uncle X. I'm not going to mention his name, but so he was really that person who was always grateful for what came his way. And he worked in the service industry as well, but he was happy to contribute. He was happy to deliver, and he was grateful for being given the opportunity to do that. And I think that's the best thing you can actually wish for.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, and I think everybody should be lucky where when they get at the end of the life, you can look back and say, "Yeah, I lived a good life, and it was very meaningful." And I think it's kind of, I think you talked about gratitude, right? And
Yes.
just like Ikigai, people are searching for Ikigai, right, instead of
Hmm.
creating. I feel like the same with happiness. They're looking for happiness. If you're looking for it, you're not going to find it. It's gratitude. Like finding, creating, an understanding within yourself how lucky you are, how grateful you are. That fuels happiness right there. It's
Yeah.
having attitude and acknowledging it and say, "Oh my God, look at that! I have a great wife. I have really good friends. People who stuck me with me through thick and thin. I have friends who are talented. I enjoy being around them." Like finding that gratitude is going to bring you happiness, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than looking for it. And I would say the same thing as Ikigai. The same thing. Create
Yeah.
it. Make
Create.
meaning. And
Hmm.
that's maybe I oversimplify stuff, but I think we've overcomplicated the Ikigai concept. Of course, today we dissected it from a cultural point of view,
Hmm.
but I think in the end, it's. I really believe when all is said and done, we're all humans and we all want to live a meaningful life, and
Yes. Yeah.
whether it's your job or not, right? So
Yeah. And yes, so yes, Hiroko-san writes, there are a few books on Ikigai, both in English and Japanese. I have read one of them and wonder what is the best translation of Ikigai in English. And I think that it's very difficult, and for everybody, it will be a different thing, again, when you translate it into English. But I love what you said, Tim, about gratitude, because even when, things do not happen in the way we want them to happen, and we go through hard periods of time, gratitude is a very strong driver, if I can say. It's not a driver. What can I say about gratitude? It's something that really takes you through
yeah,
the
get
hard of
through
time.
it. Tough times, like it. Yeah, I you know, and if you don't have gratitude, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grateful, you're not going to be happy.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and it's easy to say if things have gone well in your life. Obviously, there are people who are less fortunate than me. I've lived a very charmed life, modest but charmed. And some people might even say that I'm, privileged, and I am. I'm not embarrassed of it. I don't apologize for it. I am privileged, and I'm grateful. And also, I
Mhm.
have compassion for people who aren't. Right?
Yeah.
But some of the least privileged people I know are also some of the happiest people I've met because they've overcome hardships
Mm.
and found gratitude and overcome things that were stacked against them. Those are
Yeah.
the people I look up to. Those are the people who inspire me. So even
Yes.
they, even they have gratitude, and
Yes.
they have.
Tim. Yeah, very much so. And I have a question. So, is gratitude a byproduct of Ikigai? Is it a result of Ikigai?
Oh,
Or is
oh,
it a
hey,
part of Ikigai?
I don't know.
Or is it the reason of Ikigai?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, uh, gratitude. I don't know. Peace of we want peace of mind, and we want happiness, right? Maybe
We want, yeah.
is peace of mind.
Mm, yeah,
Um, I don't know. We now see we've taken this simple concept and we made it more difficult now, more
we have,
complicated.
yes.
So, but I guess we could do that with any word, any.
We can, yes.
But I haven't read any of the Ikigai books. I've just lived it kind of and listened to people around me, my Japanese family for many years, not many years, but
Yes.
talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Um, I guess it bugs me the commercialization and the hype and
Yeah.
I think we've overhyped it. It's just another one of those fads now.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Certification is a bridge too far for Ikigai, in my opinion. And
Yeah, and it also bugs me too because I think that as a fad, as you say, or it's just a hype that it will come and go. And it is a concept that deserves a much longer life. It doesn't deserve, to be here just for 2 or 3 years and then left in the past as something that people used and then throw away. It's so much more important and so much and worth so much more. So
yeah,
yeah, that's why the commercialization actually is something that yeah gets me, and I have
yeah.
an chip on my shoulder with it. But
Maybe
Hiroko,
I was just gonna as kind of summarize my take on it.
mhm,
I think the concept is fairly straightforward, but it each person there's a different level of difficulty to fulfill, to find that, to make it work, to create the ikigai, to live that life. And some people it's tougher than others. So and as you said, there's cultural factors on that influence our motivations and how we prioritize the world too. So that's always going to be part of it. But I still think we all want to have a meaningful life. Is kind of my simple, overly simplistic conclusion.
yeah, and if you just let me read what Hiroko-san wrote.
Yeah,
So she writes, if you dissect this word, it's ikirukai, tabegai, taberukai, kai ga aru. So yes, and kai means worthwhile or regarding or fulfilling. Yes, and so worthwhile living.
yeah,
Yes, I like this. Yes, it's a good dissection. It's
yeah,
a way to look at it and try to understand what is in the concept and what it means. Yes,
yeah. And no, and I have some good news. So everybody who listened to today's podcast till the end, you are hereby certified as Ikigai experts. Go forth and multiply and teach the world about Ikigai, please. That's our certification that you get today.
certification. No, but I do hope that people find their meaning and their purpose in life, whatever it means for them, because again, it means something different for every one of us. So do not struggle that much. Please go ahead and create that meaning and create
Find
that purpose.
find
Yes,
things to be for.
yes, yes. Great. Okay, so Tim, well,
We
it's
gotta
9 o'clock.
plug
Yoo-hoo!
our great sponsors too. We got through this
Yes.
somehow. We had to wing it today, folks. So we had a last minute cancellation. So this was all ad lib today. Hope you enjoyed our
Yes.
conversation,
I
family.
hope you enjoyed it too. And now it's a shout out to our two wonderful sponsors, Kanachu and House.